Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video. So, today we're going to be doing some soloing content. Now, the last time I attempted to solo Hellfire Citadel, I was met with disappointment. You basically couldn't get past Gorefiend without getting a friend to help you. Well, as of patch 7.2.5, we've got some really brilliant news. Most of Hellfire Citadel can actually be soloed, with your progress really more just depending on your class mechanics and the gear that you've got. So, let's get right into it. Now, I was doing this on Heroic mode. Mythic is possible, absolutely, but you probably need to be a Mythic Raider in Legion to do that, which does put it out of the reach of the majority of players, so I think Heroic is a pretty good place to start for this video. Now, Hellfire Assault was, as always, pretty easy. You just need to kill the adds and ensure that they don't kill the cannons. Then you need to pick up the ammunition that is dropped from the siege engines after you kill the siege engines, and then once you've picked the ammunition up, you run to the cannons to deposit the ammunition into them to kind of load them up. And once you do that enough, the cannons will fire upon the defenses of Hellfire Citadel, which, slowly breaks down a health bar, which leads you into the second boss. It's a bit of a strange trash fight, but it's pretty easy to do. Now, Iron Reaver is the second fight. It's a really simple tank and spank that I don't think anyone will have a major problem with. And the same goes for Kilrogg. He, once again, doesn't have any really concerning mechanics. You pretty much just need to nuke him down faster than he damages your health. There's nothing really to be concerned about. However, that's where the easy stuff pretty much ends. Things do get a bit more tricky from here on in, as they do actually require a decent enough understanding of how the fights operate. So it's not a face roll, but I think it absolutely is a fun solo challenge to chip away at, maybe in some of your more geared characters. So Hellfire High Council is easy when you do it right, and not easy when you do it wrong. Basically, you need to take the two melee bosses away from the caster, and then you want to kill them one by one. Now, the last time that I did this, it was a bit more involved because it was on my Hunter and I had less gear, but here on the PTR with my Demon Hunter at 895, it was essentially just kill them one by one and really just tank and spank past that. Yeah, I didn't find it was a big issue, but then Kilrogg happened. Now, Kilrogg is a bit harder, especially if you're not a pet class. So there's a corruption mechanic that can leave you mind-controlled. To avoid that, you just want to kill the brutes when they spawn in, or the hulks, whatever, the big dudes, and kill the smaller orc adds as well when they spawn in from the back of the room. So deal with those guys as they spawn, and then you really just need to DPS Kilrogg down as fast as you can. This really is a DPS check. You will be taking ever-increasing damage from him, so it's just about basically out-DPSing him. Having a strong mix of damage and self-heals is pretty much key here. Now, when I did this on my Hunter, it was easy because my pet was taking that damage taken debuff, not me. But I was doing this on my Demon Hunter, and I did find that body tanking was completely possible. That said, Demon Hunters, high damage and also high self-heals when in Metamorphosis, so they're pretty well suited for it. Next, we move on to Gorefiend. So, Gorefiend used to cause a reset, but that's now no longer the case. And he's actually quite simple. You just nuke him down and you kill the adds. Make sure that you don't get touched by the adds that focus on you. Just kill them by, from range. So if you're using something like Blade Dance or maybe Whirlwind, that'll still do it. But ideally, if you have a ranged ability, use that. Overall, though, he's actually pretty grand. So next, we've got Iskar. Now, Iskar is quite challenging, and I think he's going to be the roadblock for most of you, actually. Now, you need to pick up a thing called the Eye of Anzu to survive through this fight, but without their basically being other players there, you can't put the eye down. The mechanic's designed that basically you toss it to another person. You can't do that when you're soloing, and the eye puts a big dot on you that stacks over time. So it's basically a DPS race against that incoming damage. Now, you need to pick up the eye to involve the phantasmal whatever winds mechanic, which basically will blow you off the floor. So the way to do that is to not pick up the eye at the start of the fight, pick it up as soon as he uses the winds mechanic for the very first time, and he'll do that whenever he flies. He basically flies off the platform and then some adds spawn in. Now, these add phases are, I'd say, simple enough, especially if your class has a self-heal mechanic off adds like a Demon Hunter or maybe a Death Knight. Now, he does also cast these large beams at you, which do very heavy damage, so you might want to use some damage mitigation there. Now, there's 3 add phases, and what would always kill me is in the 3rd add phase, the dot from the Eye of Anzu would be really high, and not enough adds would spawn for me to be able to self-heal off them in order to survive, and then I'd be killed by his beams. So I got around this by saving Metamorphosis and Drums of Fury for the end of the fight. So much of the time in this fight, overall, is actually spent killing adds, and you're waiting for Iskar to return to the arena, which meant that it wasn't really worth blowing all my cooldowns at the start of the fight. So I decided to use Metamorphosis during the final add phase, so that I could then slowly kill those adds and benefit from the leech that Metamorphosis gives you, which allowed me to survive long enough so that once Iskar landed for the final time, I killed him, and yeah, it's easy if you do it right, hard if you do it wrong, basically. Now for Sokar, he was completely easy to me, nothing presented much challenge at all, the incoming damage was fine, it's just a matter of killing his mech, then killing his spirit, and, you know, taking time to clear out the adds as they spawn in. Tyrant Velhari, though, oh, she's another problem, she's a tricky one. So she's got 3 phases which transition at 70 and 40% health. Now each phase has an add that spawns in 10% health after the phase transition, so that's 90%, 60%, and 30% health, I believe. Now I killed the first 2 adds, I didn't bother with the third one. Technically the third one has a heal, but I didn't think it was worth doing. The overall issue here though is she has a healing absorb shield that she puts on you, which absorbs incoming heals, making it very hard to get your HP back. Basically you need to heal your way through the shield and then heal yourself. She then has a mechanic that limits your maximum health, which basically means that when I looked at the fight, I knew that phase 1 wasn't a problem, but in phase 2 those mechanics start to compound, so I knew that phase 2 and phase 3 had to last for as short a time as I could really muster. So I used Drums of Fury and Metamorphosis when she got to 70% health. The leech from Meta combined with the extra damage was able to keep me alive through the next 2 phases, but just barely. Now she very much is soloable, and those with great gear will not have an issue. But, you know, if you're at the top 800s, you know, you'll have to think about that fight a little bit more to be able to get through it. Fel Lord Zakuun is our next guy, and he's the big problem. He has his Soul Cleave mechanic that basically requires a second target. If there isn't another person there, he will reset. Now, if you're a pet class, so a Warlock or a Hunter, you're fine, but I was doing this in my Demon Hunter, and the character copy in the PTR was disabled. I didn't have a character set up, which is unfortunate. Now, I did see a Rogue solo video in this where the Rogue was able to use Vanish just before Soul Cleave to avoid the reset, but basically it was only possible to kill it with that if you're the Outlaw spec with the True Bearing buff, which would quickly reset the cooldown of Vanish, but that has since been changed in a patch, so the True Bearing no longer affects the cooldown of Vanish, so rogues can't solo it via that sort of mechanical interaction. So basically, it's one to bring a friend for, or maybe do it in Hunter. So it's really unfortunate that roadblock exists, and I would have assumed that, like, Blizzard, when they're fixing the reset problem with Gorefiend, they would have done it with Zakuun. I don't get it. It's really unfortunate. But that said, the current roster of bosses that can be soloed should be enough to get you your transmog sets, most of your weapons, most of the stuff that you're probably wanting to get from Hellfire Citadel. So that's definitely good, but still, it's a pity that getting to Archimonde and all of that isn't going to be possible for everyone. And I think it really is a shame because right now we're at that point in gearing and player power that it's actually really fun to solo. There's enough difficulty that the mechanics matter, and it's like a really light version of the 7.2 class challenges. But there you go, guys. I hope that now that you know this and have a few pointers for the fights, you'll be able to go try this out for yourself and just, yeah, maybe try something a little bit different once 7.2.5 launches. But that's it for me, guys. Thank you very much for watching this video, and I'll see you next time.